You can't move in here. I've already called the cops." Her voice just slashed through the lakeside calm, like a tornado siren that nobody asked for. Picture this. I'd barely stepped out of my truck, fresh keys in hand, when I found myself face to face with a woman in a navy blazer, feet planted right in my driveway, blocking the path to the cabin I'd just bought. Legally, mind you. That was my first 5 minutes at Clearwater Lake, and let me tell you, in that moment, I realized I'd bought myself a front row ticket to a neighborhood circus. One rusty HOA sign, one self-appointed president, and one call to 911. Suddenly, my peaceful lakeside dream turned into the front line of a Cold War. But here's the thing about folks who think they make the rules. They never expect the truth to fight back. You ever run into a Brenda like this? Yeah, I bet you have. So, the moving truck engine coughed into silence as I rolled up. 6 months of legal headaches, disputed inheritances, and about 1,000 sleepless nights had led me to this. My sanctuary after 3 years chasing crooked city councilmen and blowing the whistle on municipal fraud. The air smelled like pine, not diesel exhaust for once, and the lake was just glass, pure and still, ringed by evergreens and dotted with cabins. I should have felt safe, right? Then I saw it, a sign, half crooked on a post, reading Lakeside Estates HOA, private property. Rust stains, peeling paint, deep scratches. If you've ever worked as a reporter, you know, a neglected sign always means something's rotting underneath. I'm hauling my first box when her voice cuts in again, sharp as a chainsaw. "Excuse me. You need to stop what you're doing immediately." Here she comes, mid-50s, dressed for a board meeting, not a lakeside morning. She's got that posture, that look, like she's spent her life giving orders, expecting the world to snap to attention. "I'm Brenda Thornfield, president of the Lakeside Estates Homeowners Association. I don't know who you think you are, but this is private property. You need a moving permit for that truck, and you certainly don't have permission to unload." I set my box down, pull out my still warm paperwork. "I'm Trevor Caldwell. I just bought this cabin. Here's the deed, and all the paperwork." She glances, then scoffs. "Could be forgeries. Anyone can print papers these days. You haven't been to a board meeting, haven't completed orientation. This is suspicious." You know that word, suspicious, just hangs there, like smoke from a fire you haven't found yet. But I'm exhausted, and all I want is to move in. "Ma'am, I own this property. Everything's filed with the county. Check it yourself." But no, she's pulling out her phone, dialing 911, staring me down. "Yes, police, Lakeside Estates. There's a man claiming to own property here. Large truck. Looks like theft in progress." And just like that, the neighbors start peeking out. An old man turns back to his garden. A woman shuts her door, but not before glancing at Brenda and shrinking away. 20 minutes later, Sergeant Mike O'Brien shows up. Big guy, kind eyes, and if I had to guess, not his first call to this circus. He checks my paperwork, my license, then turns to Brenda, barely hiding his annoyance. "Ma'am, Mr. Caldwell is the legal owner. Everything checks out. No crime here." Brenda turns red. "Impossible. We have procedures." Sergeant O'Brien shrugs. "That's property law, ma'am. If you have concerns, talk to your HOA attorney." As his patrol car drives off, Brenda glares at me like she could freeze the lake. "Don't think this is over, Mr. Caldwell. We have standards here, and I will not allow you to disrupt what we've built." Then she marches away, military precision and all. That's when I realized those scratches on the HOA sign weren't random. They were warnings, stories of resistance etched by people who'd pushed back and lost. In all my years digging up corruption, I'd learned fear, fake authority, and quick calls to the cops are always signs of something ugly under the surface. The notices started rolling in, like clockwork. $500 for parking the truck too long, citing some rule that didn't exist anywhere in the HOA documents. Another fine for the color of my cabin's cedar stain, even though half the cabins looked just like mine. Each letter had more elaborate letterhead, every fine designed to sting, but not quite enough to drag to court. She was probing for weakness. The third notice? That one was next level, threatening and intimidating behavior. Because I'd smiled and waved at neighbors. $300 fine for aggressive friendliness and suspicious surveillance activity. I sat on my deck, coffee gone cold, rereading this nonsense, trying to decide whether to laugh or scream. So I did what I do best, started digging. I pulled out the HOA covenants, compared every made-up violation to the real rules, yellow highlighter in hand. The actual document? Pretty straightforward. Noise limits, dock rules, nothing about social interaction limits or behavioral monitoring. I marked every fake rule, every made-up regulation. Brenda had built herself an empire of imaginary laws, using fear and paperwork to keep everyone in line. Classic abuse of power, seen it 100 times. And here's where it gets good. If Brenda wanted to pick a fight, she'd picked the wrong person. I started walking the neighborhood, watching. Folks kept curtains drawn, avoided eye contact, whispered when they spoke. The community wasn't awkward, it was afraid. Garrett Fleming, retired teacher, was out pruning roses when I stopped by. What started as small talk turned deep when I mentioned my stack of violation notices. Used to be, neighbors came by just to see these roses, he told me. Now, I tend them alone, scared that any day Brenda's gonna find me for planting the wrong color red. He looked up, voice trembling. She's stolen our sense of community. We don't trust each other anymore. By then, I'd realized, Brenda wasn't just a busybody. She'd turned neighborliness itself into a crime. People were afraid to wave, afraid to talk, because she'd convinced them that anything could be reported. A whole community living in low-level panic, just waiting for the next hammer to drop. That night, I sat on my deck, lake all calm and shining, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. But I wasn't scared. No, what I felt was something else, something like excitement. This was corruption, sure, but this time I wasn't an outsider. I was living it, collecting evidence from the inside. If Brenda wanted a fight, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I started my Brenda files, digital folders, photos of every violation notice, notes on fonts and wording changes, everything timestamped and cataloged. The more I gathered, the clearer the pattern became. Different fonts, fake legal language, bogus citations. Her whole operation was built on intimidation and make-believe. I talked to more neighbors. Everyone had a story. Everyone had paid up because fighting was too expensive, too exhausting. Melanie Cross, single mom, let me in for coffee, whispering how the whole neighborhood had changed. We used to have potlucks. Now everyone hides. And then there was Garrett. He saw the bigger picture. This isn't management, he told me. It's authoritarianism with a mailbox. Turns out, Brenda hadn't held a real HOA meeting in years. No financial transparency, no elections, nothing. She'd just taken over, collecting fees and handing out fines. No oversight, no accountability. I started cross-referencing everything with state law, and, surprise, Brenda's empire was about as legal as monopoly money. No annual budgets, expired registrations, missing records. She was operating in a complete legal vacuum. She'd found the perfect victims, folks who just wanted peace, who'd rather pay up than fight. But now she'd picked on someone who had the skills and the drive to tear her whole system down. I reached out to an old friend, Tracy Wells, property law ace. She didn't mince words. You're describing criminal territory, fraud, embezzlement, civil rights violations. She walked me through the legal attack plan. Multiple agencies, coordinated pressure, the works. I got to work, filing complaints, making calls, building the airtight case. Funny thing, the minute word of state investigators started floating around, Brenda's violation machine ground to a halt. Neighbors started to come out of hiding, sharing their stories, their emails, their stacks of fines. The floodgates opened. Soon, the Department of Real Estate, the Attorney General, and the FBI civil rights folks were all involved. Brenda tried to pivot, leaving a handwritten note at my door, asking for a personal discussion. Too late for that. The investigation rolled forward. Linda Martinez, state investigator, showed up, a real pro. She walked the property, collected evidence, grilled Brenda, who fell apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Her excuses didn't fly. Bank records, missing, documents, off-site. Every answer weaker than the last. When the residents saw real authority in action, they started bringing out their own evidence. Bankers' boxes of bogus fines, printed emails, years of pain. The final blow came at the emergency community meeting. Nearly every resident showed up. Linda walked us through the mountain of evidence. Embezzlement, fake governance, harassment, everything. One by one, neighbors told their stories. I stood up and said it plain. What Brenda destroyed wasn't just money. She killed the trust that makes community possible. She made neighbors afraid of each other. Even Brenda, in a desperate final speech, said out loud what we all knew. She'd taken control because she believed only she could decide who belonged. The vote was unanimous. Brenda removed. The state pressed charges. She took a plea deal, paid restitution, a massive fine, banned from leadership for 5 years. For the first time, the neighborhood breathed easy. Kids played in yards, porch lights glowed, laughter returned. I took on the role of interim president, with Garrett and Melanie by my side. We rebuilt transparency, held real elections, and watched the healing take hold in 100 small ways. Roses admired, barbecues rekindled, conversations drifting through open windows. 1 year later, we're a model for other HOAs fighting similar battles. The scars are still there, but so is the community, stronger, wiser, finally free. I came to escape corruption, but found the most meaningful fight of my life. Turns out, justice isn't a courtroom drama. It's a daily promise, kept and earned, one ordinary neighbor at a time. So, let me ask you, where do you stand on neighborhood power and justice? Ever had to face down an HOA tyrant, or seen community transformed by standing up together? Drop your story in the comments, because these battles aren't just mine, they're everywhere, and they matter. If you believe in real justice, in community, in fighting back against abuse, stick around. The next chapter might be yours.